Welcome Osprey Nation to a special sit-down interview with recently hired, the fourth head baseball coach in UNF Baseball history, head coach Joe Mercadante. We're here at Harmon Stadium with the field in the background. Thanks for joining us today.
Of course, yeah, I'm excited to be here.
So we took you around the field, got some pictures, talked a little bit last week, but just give the listeners today a brief introduction about yourself, where you were most recently, and some of the stops in your career.
Yeah, it's great to be back in Florida, being a Florida native. Always good to get back in the sun, get a little sweat going, and beautiful field. It's always good to be back on the green grass. Recently, last couple of years, been at the University of Pittsburgh with Mike Bell and his staff. Great opportunity to coach in the ACC and compete at a high level. And another thing that as a coach, you appreciate the opportunity to go out there and kind of broaden your network and start to learn some different areas in the country, because our sport's competitive sport this day, and obviously the players are great in the state of Florida, especially in the Jacksonville area, but you always want to be able to broaden it out and get a little bit wider with your scope from year to year, just to fill the needs to make sure you're putting a competitive team out there that can win ball games and compete for an ASUN championship. So that was my most recent stop. Previous to that, it was kind of all over the state of Florida. Started off, played at the University of Florida for a couple years for Pat McMahon, a Bishop Kenny grad, and just owe a lot to him in terms of the education he gave me in the game of baseball, and still a lot of stuff he taught me back then sticks with me as a coach today. And then was very privileged and very blessed to have a chance to work for Jim Morse at the University of Miami for 7 years. Started off as a volunteer, was able to work my way up to a full-time assistant, and led the hitters and assisted with the recruiting for 3 years or so, and just learned a lot. I mean, that's a Hall of Fame college baseball coach, won 2 national championships, and I learned a lot from him throughout those years, and still stay in touch with him. He's a great guy for me to look to as a mentor and help me as I kind of embark on my first head coaching journey. From there, went to UCF, spent a year at UCF. And then was at Stetson for 4 years before going up to Pittsburgh. So, all those experiences have been really, really valuable for me, getting to learn the game of baseball and see how some of the best in the business run a program, but also getting a feel for the state and, the ASUN. That's a valuable experience at Stetson, being across the field, getting to see the league, getting to see how the game's played, and kind of figuring out how you want to separate yourself when you come in and put yourself at a competitive advantage against the really good opponents in this league.
Yeah, how does it, feel this past week, when you got offered the job, digesting it all, working all those years? How does it feel to step into that reality? I mean, it's been really busy, I'm sure, and you haven't really been able to process it, but what does it feel like to have that first head coaching role at a Division I level? It's
surreal. It took a little time for it to kind of sink in. You work your whole life and 15 years coaching Division I, for this opportunity, and it's been humbling, and it's been a great experience, and just the hundreds of people that have reached out to wish me the best of luck and send their congratulations it was a great thing. You get to realize how many people this game brings into your life, and how those relationships are. Other coaches, other head coaches, guys that I coached previously that are now in the real world working, just reaching out, and it's always a great feeling to know that you've touched some previous players and have a good relationship with those others that work in the same industry. So it's been great. It's been fast paced. It's been every waking moment, kind of picking up and going to work, but that's what it's all about, and I've enjoyed every minute of it.
To get this opportunity in your home state, was this something that you and your family targeted? Was that something you hoped for, maybe, that, hey, if I get that head coaching job, I want it to be in Florida ideally?
I quickly learned that in this industry especially, you can't pick where you want your jobs to be. It's about the opportunity, and I learned early on in my career too, it's about being able to work for the right people and working with good people within the administration, being able to surround yourself with great coaches. So, that kind of became the priority number one, is making sure I was, when I got the opportunity to work for a great program in the supportive athletic department, and then surround myself with great coaches. But in the back of your mind, you're always, if we could ever get back to Florida, that's great, and that's been the awesome thing, seeing my kids. I have 2 young kids at home, 8 and 9. Getting them back closer to their family, and they grew up at the beach, so getting the chance for them to get back to where they're really happy. It's as a parent, take the coaching hat off. That's been great too.
Describe some of your roles that you've had at those stops previously, especially at Pittsburgh. What were some of those things that you specialized in at those spots?
Yeah, I think I've always kind of had the recruiter's hat on, and that's one of the things that I really gravitated to and really started to enjoy about this job. I got into it for coaching, and that's always priority number one, is helping the young men on your team on a daily basis, helping them get better, supporting them not just on the field but off the field, academically, socially, helping them become leaders. That's always been number one. But the recruiting part has always been another piece that I've really enjoyed. The opportunity to get to meet new people, develop new relationships, not just with prospects but with coaches, and supports and their lives has been something that I've always enjoyed as well. So kind of at all my stops I've had the recruiter's hat on, but been able to do some different things within academic liaisons, doing some fundraising, some work with alums, and donors has been something that I've also been able to do, and also just kind of helping with building up camps and all the other kind of auxiliaries that come with the college baseball program. So I've been lucky. I've been able to wear a lot of hats to kind of prepare me for this moment, but it all comes back to surrounding myself with good people that are going to help me on a daily basis do the job.
When you were at Stetson, I probably handed a box score or got a pregame report to you or something when I was here. So just a couple years ago when you were with the Hatters here, did you ever envision maybe you'd coach at another ASUN school at the time or be the head coach in the other dugout?
I think you always kind of, when you go into a ballpark as a coach, you're like, man, this is a pretty good setup, and you start kind of analyzing the job and thinking, this would be a good place, there's a good recruiting base and all that. So I certainly thought that. Now my wife let me know last week as we were kind of soaking this experience in that, the last time we were up here with Stetson, she kind of was sitting up in the stands with the kids, and she let me know that she kind of had a little premonition that one day maybe, she at least thought I would be a good fit if opportunity ever came up. So it always seems like the wives have a little bit more of a premonition that usually rings true sometimes.
Speaking of those spots, and Stetson included, having that great year in 2018, having a couple good teams there, and some really stellar guys, and some of them that played at the big league level. Been at regionals and supers and College World Series. A couple times ranked in the top 10 at a mid-major level even. We're talking about Miami and UCF. What does that experience being on those stages allow you to bring to UNF?
Yeah, I think it gives you an opportunity on a daily basis to see how those programs are run, and also where the priorities lie within those programs when they're putting together those type teams. And the common denominators always come back to really good pitching and defense. I've been a part of some really elite offensive clubs that weren't able to quite get that far because the game has gotten better, and obviously the offensive numbers have increased, but at the end of the day, you turn on Omaha or regionals or super regionals, there are some elite pitching staffs that are getting teams in those positions. And, offensive slumps are going to happen. Teams get cold from time to time. But if you're able to play really good defense and pitch at a high level, it's going to give you a chance to compete and make those runs deep in the postseason.
What are some of those short-term goals that you want to accomplish now and leading up into the fall and the winter?
Yeah, I think number one was kind of roster management and seeing where we are as a program, figuring out the depth charts. We've got a solid nucleus returning, but we have some holes in those spots that we got to fill. And those are important pieces, not necessarily because of, just numbers in that, but it's also the places where you place an emphasis on defense. So, trying to get stronger up the field is going to be a huge priority. And honestly, probably 70% of my time since I got the job has been talking to potential guys, portal guys, some JUCO players that are still available, and trying to make sure we're strong up the middle, shortstop, second base, center field, and getting some guys that can defend at a high level. Obviously, the pitching staff's another thing we're looking at, and I'm starting to finalize my staff and waiting for those guys to become official. But also identified some guys on the pitching side that we think can come in and provide some much needed depth.
What are some of your goals stretching into the next couple of years? What are some of those goals that you have for your vision here?
Yeah, I think number one is just developing the relationships with these guys that are on our team for this year. I've always been a coach that has placed a premium on the relationship side, because that's what it's about. Today's player is much different than he was 15 years ago when I started. So it's important that when you're starting anew as a coach, you're really fighting to make sure that you develop those relationships. And I've sat down with as many guys that are local, that are still in town, to kind of give them a little bit of time and get to know them a little bit, and teach them a little bit about myself. But really just developing relationships, letting them understand the vision of the program, where we're going, how we're going to do it. That's going to be number one for us. And once they know that we're in it for them and we're about the player each and every day, then we can move on to the baseball stuff. And you know, we're going to have a certain way we're going to do things, and we're going to do things the right way. But it's most important to get to know the kids each and every day.
Any other tidbits of information you want people to know about you? You know, comes to hometown, maybe what you studied in college. You know, obviously we talked about where you went to college, but any other information?
Yeah, just, you know, excited to get back to everything Florida brings. I think, obviously, I'm a family guy first and foremost. You know, my wife and 2 children are the biggest parts of my life. You know, my parents being 2 hours away in Orlando, the in-laws 2 hours away, my brother's down outside of Orlando. So getting back and being able to reconnect with them and have them come to games and support the program, that's something that's exciting me right now. Excited to get out, play some more golf. I'm not going to have a whole lot of time, but maybe squeeze in a range session every now and then. That'll be big. You know, just excited to get this opportunity. You know, it's you're right. Go back to the college. You know, was a sport management major. You know, got my master's in exercise and sports science. And as I've told a lot of the players, you know, when I've sat down, I didn't know that coaching was kind of going to be my thing until I graduated, and I started to work some camps and just got engaged and really enjoyed the rewarding feeling when you help somebody figure something out. So I always go back to my roots and why I started this, and it's been a fantastic time.
Anything else you want to add, Joe, before we depart?
Just excited for the opportunity. This program has got such a strong tradition. It's you know, a place that has had some great seasons, some really quality teams. You look at some of the players that have moved on or received All-American status. It's a strong and proud program. We're looking forward to strengthening that and building our own, you know, new chapter, but also never forgetting about the history and the great things that have been done here. You know, you talk about being the 4th head coach. That's kind of amazing when you think about the things that, you know, Dusty was able to do here, and transitioning from the D2 level, D1 level, and having some great seasons. And Smoke, obviously, you know, did a nice job when he was here, and TP, and all guys that I've kind of run across in my baseball lives. And it's humbling to be in the same group with those guys. Those are 3 really, really strong baseball guys, and a couple guys that would be kind of legends in our sport. So I'm excited to put our stamp on it, but at the same time, it's always going to be one of those things where we look back and remember what's come before us, and it's a great program.
Well, thanks, Joe. I appreciate you making the time for us and coming down from Pittsburgh as you transition to Florida once again, and excited to get things going.
Thanks for having me.